Oikein hyvää päivää ja tervetuloa seuraamaan suoraa verkkolähetystä Energiatehokas Suomi. Lähetys striimataan Pasilan kupeesta Helsingin Metsälästä. Seuraavan 2 tunnin aikana tartumme lujasti 2 teemaan: energiatehokkuuteen ja vähähiilisyyteen. Ne ovat toki sukua toisilleen. Millainen on energiatehokkuuden vaikutus suomalaiseen yhteiskuntaan? Millaisin eväin valmistaudumme tuleviin EU:n energiatehokkuusvaatimuksiin? Ja millainen rooli energiatehokkuudella on valtavissa ilmastotoimissa? Studiossa aiheesta on keskustelemassa joukko eri alojen asiantuntijoita. Lisäksi palkitsemme tänään vuoden 2020 energianerot, nerokkaimmat teot, ja paljastamme uudet tsempparit. Energiatsempparit nimenomaan, ei mitä tahansa tsemppareita. Te, hyvät katsojat, voitte osallistua tähän keskusteluun lähettämällä chattiin kommentteja ja kysymyksiä. Myös Twitterissä livertäminen on kovin suotavaa. #ETS-talkcast, eli talkcast. Minun nimeni on Keijo Leppänen. Silloin tällöin iltasella olen teitä toki tavannutkin. Viimeksi eilen kello 22. Huomaatte varmaan, että mulla on edelleen sama puku päällä. Tämän syksyn energiatekoni on 280 metriä pitkä ja halkaa sieltään tuommoinen 11 senttiä. Arvaatko, Ulla, mikä se on?
Maalämpö.
Aivan loistava veikkaus. Se ei ole maalämpö kokonaisuutena, se on ainoastaan se porakaivo, mutta siihen häntään laitetaan kyllä sitten laitteita. Se on maalämpökaivo. Kallioporari käynnistelee koneitaan tontillani Espoossa ihan näinä päivinä. Hyvät ystävät, hän on Ulla Suomi, ankkuriparini tänään. Hän on Motivasta. Ulla, olet ansioitunut energiatsemppari ja palkittukin. Mikä on toistaiseksi viimeisin energiatekosi sinulla?
Ai, nyt oli paha. Ehkä mä oon siirtynyt kokonaan käyttämään maidieseliä, biodieseliä, kun vähän on tuskaa, kun on dieselauto eikä sähköauto.
Toi oli hyvä vinkki mullekin. Mä käytän ihan tavallista dieseliä, kun en tiedä, mitä tuo mainitsemasi diesel on, mutta ehkä tänään sen opin tuntemaan. Ulla, mitä odotat seuraavalta 2 tunnilta?
No kyllä mä odotan aika mielenkiintoisia keskusteluja. Meillä on panelisteista tosi mukavia ja päteviä ja erilaisista lähtökohdista tulevia keskustelijoita, että odotan mielenkiinnolla kyllä ja kaiken lisäksi kuullaan uutisia vielä tuolta vähän Brysselistä.
Näin on. Meillä ei todellakaan ole täällä pelkästään puhuvia päitä, vaan myös aitoa kuvallista ilotulitusta ja sitten vähän muutakin. Keskustelujen Annin nimittäin jalostaa piirroskuviksi live-kuvittajamme. Hän on Linda Saukko-Rauta. Tämä digiajan kyllitäti osallistuu keskusteluun ja on Jyväskylässä. Näin. Studion lauteille ovat jo istahtaneet ensimmäisen teemakeskustelun Suomi ja energiatehokkuus -osallistujat. Ennen tuota keskustelua vielä kuitenkin pieni reissu maailmalle.
Aivan. Eli ennen kuin lähdetään paneelikeskusteluun, niin me saadaan tähän nyt vieraaksi Keynote-puheenvuoro tuolta Brysselistä Katharina Weidenbach, joka toimii siellä EU-komissiossa energiatehokkuusryhmässä juristina ja asiantuntijana erityisesti energiatehokkuusdirektiivin siinä artikla 7, jolla mekin täällä Suomessa energiatehokkuussopimustoimintaa hyvin menestyksekkäästi olemme toimeenpanneet jo pitkään. And now I hope you, Anne, are online.
Yes, Ulla, thanks a lot. Hyvää päivää. I hope I pronounce it correctly.
It was really fine.
I will improve. And let me please express my gratitude that you invited DJ Anna and that you allowed me to take actively part in this conference. And as requested, I would be happy to present in the next few minutes a brief overview on the progress of member states, what they have made towards the energy savings required by the end of 2020, and to mention some key energy policy developments that have happened since the adoption of the Clean Energy Package. You might know that as published in the latest Energy Efficiency Progress Report, mid of October 2020, reported energy savings are broadly on track at EU level, but there is a wide variation among member states. Finland has the highest reported energy savings relative to the required amount of energy savings by 2020 by some distance. And it appears that Finland is the only member state to have already fulfilled the energy savings obligation regarding 2020, but this is still subject to a final assessment after 2020. Member states implemented many different types of policy measures. Over 1/3 of the energy savings required come from energy efficiency obligation schemes, and over 60% from energy and CO2 taxes, 6% from voluntary agreements. Finland reports 1/3 of its energy savings from voluntary agreements, and the Netherlands is the only other country to report a large proportion of its savings from voluntary agreements. But please allow me to stress that the success of voluntary agreements in delivering a huge share of energy savings very much depends on the local condition of the industry and the design, and it's difficult to imagine a one-size-fits-all approach. In this regard, let me please share some thoughts about effectiveness, key elements, and challenges of voluntary agreements we identified during the first period 2014 to 2020. Voluntary agreements clearly offer flexibility to participants in how to meet targets and enable participants to find cost-effective solutions. This is also a feature shared by other instruments, for example, the energy efficiency obligation schemes, which allow also a wide variety of actions to be generated to generate energy savings. To be effective, a voluntary agreement needs some kind of threats, such as regulations if a voluntary agreement is not effective, or tied to incentives, such as access to tax break, for example, this is the case for UK, or access to more favorable subsidy schemes, as it is the case in Finland, or inability to score corporate environmental sustainability and governance points, as it is also the case in Finland. From our experience when setting up a voluntary agreement, the following key elements need to be considered. We need clear, measurable targets linked to estimates of potential, the potential to link the agreement to energy audits and energy management regimes to identify savings. We need sufficient independent monitoring, verification, and evaluation expertise to scrutinize agreements and reporting. And we need access to support services for SMEs without the internal institutional capability to interact fully with the voluntary agreement and the opportunities it provides. For sure, there are also challenges to overcome, like the problem of asymmetric information. Business usually know more about their actual investment plans than external consultants, making it more difficult to assess the true savings relative to a no policy baseline. So it means, what would businesses have done without the policy measure? This is especially true in the industry sector, where industrial processes are often bespoke. This means the additionality associated with voluntary agreements can be difficult to estimate. Where the stick associated with the voluntary agreement is relatively weak, and this could be argued to be the case in Finland, the materiality of the policy measure in generating energy savings could also be weak. Given the benefits of taking actions under the voluntary agreement, how sure can we be that it is the voluntary agreement that caused the energy savings action to be undertaken? And this is one key aspect. So evaluation is essential, and given the challenges presented before. I just prepared one example that might be interesting for you to note. There is a voluntary agreement in the UK which has a bigger stick, which means the need to pay a full rate of carbon tax as a levy as opposed to the minimum level compliant with the ETD. And almost half of the participants of the voluntary agreement that took action on energy efficiency reported that they would have taken all the same actions on the same scale and time frame if they had not participated in the second voluntary agreement, but had instead been fully exposed to the levy. The other half reported that the voluntary agreement made some differences to their energy efficiency actions. Sharing this experience we gained might hopefully be interesting for you and helpful for you to consider regarding further actions needed to contribute and to achieve the climate and energy targets post-2020. With their NECPs, we assessed the NECPs submitted by member states. Most of the member states have not provided the level of ambition or details on Article 7 needed to meet the 2030 targets yet. And as you know, the climate goal is now more ambitious with 55%. Thus, further action is definitely required on energy efficiency. And we assume to look back to the achievements of Article 7 targets appear unlikely to be sufficient. We could argue that this is the floor to action rather than the ceiling on ambition. And it is more likely that member states need to go far beyond Article 7 through, for example, the initiative of the renovation wave and actions in other sectors. We also assess if Article 7 may need to be made more ambitious in order to fill the gap towards 2030. Regarding Finland, Finland suggested once again that Finland will massively overperform on Article 7 in the period 2021 to 2030. However, over 50% of the savings are expected to come from voluntary agreements. And in this regard, I would like to emphasize again the need to ensure the certainty over the savings coming from a voluntary agreement. In this regard, it would be interesting to hear more about the next steps of stakeholders in Finland on energy efficiency policy measures. And I would be really happy to hear your view also in the aftermath of this conference, if the voluntary agreement could make more use of metered savings, for example, to provide greater certainty regarding the delivery of energy savings. Just briefly to conclude on the next steps, you know, the Commission published the communication on the climate target plan in September this year and proposed a target to reduce GHG emission by at least 55% by 2030. It is important in this regard that we stress that if current policies were to be fully implemented, we would reach around 45% of greenhouse gas reduction compared to 1990 level. This would be or could be considered as a good result in the light of this increased at least 55% ambition, but actions are needed. And it is also clear, given the important role of energy needs to play in the fight against climate change, due to the very high percentage of emissions it is responsible for, actions are specifically needed in the energy sector. In this framework, energy efficiency needs to be prioritized, explained in the European Green Deal, and we need to reduce the energy we consume. Therefore, as regards energy efficiency, more needs to be done, as current energy efficiency policies and measures would not be sufficient to achieve at least 55% of climate action. The climate target plan also highlighted to achieve the increased ambition, there's a need to significantly step up energy efficiency efforts, and it is estimated that the energy efficiency ambition needs to be increased from 32.5% to 36 to 37% for final energy consumption and 39 to 41% for primary energy consumption. And keeping in mind that the review and assessment of the climate plans showed an ambition gap in energy efficiency of 2.8 percentage points for primary energy consumption and 3.1% for final energy consumption. As you may know, the energy efficiency review and revision was also identified as one of the key actions to deliver on objectives of the energy system integration strategy and the renovation wave. And I'm very happy to inform you that the open public consultation for the EED review and revision has just been published, so yesterday. And the consultation will be open until 9th of February 2021. And this consultation is part of the EED review and revision process, which was launched in August this year. And the aim is of this consultation is to collect your views and the views of other stakeholders, member states, experts, and general public on both the evaluation and the revision of the EED. And maybe let me conclude with a kind request. I would kindly invite you to forward this message to all your colleagues, and members and interested parties, we would really very much appreciate if you could help us to spread the message that the public consultation is open for comments. And in this regard, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anne. It was a really interesting news, both positive and also issues that need to be considered here in Finland. We already have now over 400 interested participants listening your speech, so I think this will be discussed widely. But we have now not questions from the participants. Perhaps some of you in these panelists would like to ask something from you, Anne, or comment something you said. Riku Huttunen from the Ministry of Employment and the Economy.
Hello, Anne, and yes, best regards from the Ministry. We have been cooperating for a long time, and it was very nice to hear your introduction to the subject. For us, it's of primary interest to follow and to affect the way the Energy Efficiency Directive will be modernized next year and after that. We all know that next year we should receive a proposal by the Commission in order to synchronize the actions in order to achieve the 55% emissions cut target. In Finland, we must take into consideration that our energy production is pretty low carbon already, especially electricity production. On the other hand, we have a very ambitious target to become climate neutral by 2035, so we need swift action. So my question is, the problem is that we have found the existing directive pretty mechanical in its target setting. In the future, we think we should measure more like the low carbon value of actions, not so much look at the overall consumption of energy, and focus on the real energy efficiency measures, which should be taken by the member states. Anna, do you think that there would be some kind of changes to the target setting in the Energy Efficiency Directive?
I mean, it's a very important and interesting point, and also I would encourage you to participate also in all ongoing public consultations. But I guess having measures focusing on low carbon actions is one point, but I think it is good and important to have still a target focusing on the energy consumption. I think only if they work together, like a renewables target, the carbon target, and the energy efficiency target, we really make it to be climate neutral in 2050. We have some analysis ongoing how much energy efficiency can contribute to low carbon, and we still are convinced that having energy efficiency goals in terms of referring to the energy consumption is still an important point. But nevertheless, I think it's also a valid point from your side, and of course I will also report it back to my hierarchy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Riku, from the question, and Anne, thanks a lot for your keynote speech. And once again, I hope you have a good day also there, and we'll pass also our views to your colleagues. Thanks a lot, Anne.
Kiitoksia Anne, kiitoksia Ulla.